This is Sherlock Holmes the card game. Before play starts, there are a few things that are very important to note. 1. Make sure the cards are shuffled really well. 2. The quick reference guides are extremely useful as each card has a different function. Make sure you refer to this throughout the game. There are 108 cards in the pack and they are split into 6 categories. There are the purple detective cards. These are special cards that allow players to undertake extra sleuthing, such as looking at opponents' cards or swapping hands. The game is a foot card is part of this category and is what starts the game. There are 4 black villain cards and the aim of the game is to arrest the players with these cards, or, if you have the card, escape before getting caught. We will explore how you arrest a player later on in the video. Next are the 3 different movement cards. Throughout the game, you will have to use a train or a hansom card to move around London or the country in order to search for clues. Or, if you want to wreak havoc, the thick fog card causes complete confusion as players' cards are shuffled and redealt, meaning that the villain card can be passed on to another player. There are 4 types of location card: London, Baker Street, Scotland Yard and the country. In these locations you can search for clues or attempt to arrest villains. Finally, there are 4 types of information cards and 3 types of action cards. When played, these cards allow players to trip up their opponents by making them pick up cards from the draw pile or adding 10 points to their score, as well as making arrests and inspecting your opponent's hand. Remember to refer to the double-sided quick reference guide throughout the game to find out the features of each card. The guide is an easy way to find out the category of each card, how many points it's worth, and what happens when each card is played. One more important thing before we start. Each card is worth a different amount of points, which is shown in the top left corner. The winner of the game is the player with the least amount of points, so you want to keep an eye on these. The colour of the text at the side shows you the category of each card, and the coloured squares at the bottom show you which card can be played next. Okay, have you got all of that? Now we are finally ready to start playing. Grab a pad and a pen and write down the names of each player. We recommend playing with at least 3 people. Separate the villain cards, and the game is a foot card from the rest of the deck. Place 3 of the villain cards to one side, face down. Place the game as a foot card and the final villain card face down. Thoroughly shuffle the rest of the deck. Now this part is a little tricky. Each player must have 6 cards, which includes the game as a foot card and the villain card that we've placed to one side. So if there are 3 players, count out 16 cards from the shuffled deck to make 18 cards in total. If there are 4 players, you would deal out 22 cards, and if there are 5 players, you would deal out 28 cards. As we have 3 players, we have counted out 16 cards from the shuffled deck, and then add the game as a foot and the villain card to this smaller pile to make 18 cards in total. Now deal out the cards so that each player has 6 cards. Add the other 3 villain cards to the main deck, give it another good shuffle and place it in the centre. This is the draw pile. Now players can look at their hand. Remember to keep your hand a secret. However, for the purposes of this video, we are going to lay them out in front of each player. Player 1, Rishi, has the game as a foot card, so they get to go first. Now it's player 2, Becky's turn. They must play a movement card, so they lay a handsome card. Player 3, Jasmine, can either lay a thick fog or location card. As she doesn't have a thick fog card, she plays her London card. Back to Rishi's go. Now that the gameplay is in the London location, it's time to start the sleuthing. Rishi plays a disguise card, which means that they can choose to look at 2 cards from one of their opponent's hands. Rishi chooses to look at 2 of player 3, Jasmine's cards. Rishi now knows that Jasmine has the villain card, as well as the inspector card. Becky now plays the clue cards, which means that they can look at 2 of the previous player's cards. Becky now knows that Rishi has the handsome and arrest card. Player 3, Jasmine, plays their inspector card. This card gives Jasmine the right to make any opponent pick up 2 cards from the deck. They choose Becky, but Becky has an alibi card and they quickly lay it, which means they block the move and don't have to pick it up. Play moves on to player 1, Rishi. Players can only play a move card after an alibi card, so Rishi plays the Handsome card. Now Becky plays the Baker Street card. Because we are in a London location, Jasmine can play their Mycroft card. This card allows the player to swap their hand with any other player. This is a great move for Jasmine, as they are the one with the villain card, so it means they can get rid of it. They choose to swap hands with Rishi, so now Rishi has the villain card and Jasmine knows it. Back to Rishi's turn, and they lay their Telegram card. This card adds 10 points to the next player's score, so 10 points is added under Becky's name. After a Telegram, you can only play a move card, so Becky has to play their Train card, which takes play from the Baker Street location to the country, which is played by Jasmine. Player 1, Rishi, now plays the Inspector card and makes Becky pick up 2 cards. This is a really good move, as Becky is nearly out of cards, which means they would win the game. And now Becky has a villain card too. Players can lay an alibi, arrest or move card after an Inspector card has been laid. As Becky doesn't have any of those, they must pick up a card from the deck. Jasmine can see that Rishi only has 1 card left, and they know that that card is a villain card. If Rishi lays the villain card on their next go, then he wins the game, so Jasmine must arrest him by laying her arrest card. When the arrest card is played, the player can choose to look at the opponent's hand in secret. As Rishi has the villain card, the arrest is a success, so play stops and the points are scored. If Rishi was not guilty and didn't have the villain card, Jasmine would receive all of Rishi's cards as a penalty for wrongly accusing them. Rishi would take a fresh hand of the same number of cards from the draw pile and play would continue. But back to the original gameplay, where Rishi has the villain card. Now we're at the end of this round, so players must total up their score and find out who is the winner. Jasmine is the player who made the arrest, so they deduct the value of the villain card from their score. Jasmine had 1 card left, worth 5 points, so their score is 5 minus 30, which equals minus 25. Rishi was the player with the villain card, and they got arrested, so we need to add 30 points to their score. Becky already has 10 points, plus they had 3 cards left. Thick Fog is worth 5 points, the Alibi is worth 15 points. Because their villain card was undetected, this score is not counted, so Becky has a total score of 30. So that's the end of round 1. There are lots of other ways the round could end. For example, if Jasmine hadn't played the arrest card, Rishi would have gone out by discarding their villain card, which means they would have escaped. Players with escaped villains get to deduct the points from the value of their score. We recommend playing a total of 6 rounds and keeping score of each round. The player with the lowest score at the end is the winner. So that's how you play Sherlock Holmes the card game. Full rules are included inside the box. Head to the Gibson's website to get your copy.